I remind myself, there you go. I started to record this. If you have a problem with being recorded, do feel free to turn off the camera and go on mute. We will be posting this on YouTube and sharing this, all right? For those folks that are not capable of making it. Uh, we are part of the larger Agile Austin organization. It's a nonprofit. We've got a lot of events that are going on. I don't want to take up too much time on this, but I think it's just key for some people that might be joining for the first time. Like, we are under the Agile Austin umbrella, right? And we have some awesome sponsors, right? If there's anybody that's joined from a sponsors, please do put it in the chat. We've got Agile Velocity has been our platinum sponsor for years, like awesome Agile consulting services that they provide, and all the other folks here. So thank you always, and shout out to our sponsors, right? This is just one of the many special interest groups we have in the Agile Austin organization. So the quick thing I'll say, if you haven't had the chance, sign up with Agile Austin and Meetup. So then you have an access to all of them and you get some alerts. There's some really awesome stuff going on in the coaching SIGs, the scaled frameworks one, and stuff like that. Okay, so in case you have more of an interest sometimes of DevOps and some other things, there's book club also. So if you haven't had the chance, check it out. And we are stepping up our presence in social media. Yeah, like we thought it was about time, right? It's about time to just step it up a bit. You know, we've got some pages here. We got a YouTube channel that's going viral and everything. Like, we actually post the recordings out there now. Okay, so
yeah,
you can.
check this out. And
Okay,
I hear someone that is speaking, and
how about in an hour?
I didn't get the right person. Hold on.
If not, then let's just do it.
I am gonna find you.
Good luck.
Help me out, folks. Who is it? Tell me. Who is it? So I can mute them. Oh, I muted 3 people. I didn't get the right person yet. Okay, let me see. Maybe I got them now. Folks, our SIG here, we meet the first Friday of every month. We talk about leading Agile transformation and adoptions. That's what we do. I'm Max Ekesi. I'm actually the founder of this special interest group back in 2011, and I've facilitated every month ever since then. And the first thing I want to say, thank you, Josh. It takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of work. You know, I was 16 when I started it, but it's been a lot of work and stuff. The one thing I like to say about being involved with something for 10 years, for a decade, you see the transformation of it. You see how it evolves. And when we started this SIG, Agile in 2010 was like, we were talking about, how do we do story point estimation? How can we help train people to do sprint planning? How can we do all these process things about frameworks and stuff like that? Fast forward 10 years and we are so beyond that now we're really so focused on how can we really help people and their needs, right? Whether it be building trust, high-performing teams, cultural things. Like, it's really awesome to see how we've evolved in 10 years. And because Agile is so mainstream, and it'll be interesting to see 10 years from now, where are we going to be? Where are we going to be? I'm an Agile enterprise coach at Whole Foods. And I'm also the Agile Austin VP. I'm on the board. So for those of you that might be interested in it, it's an awesome organization. I've been a member for like 12 years or so. And please feel free to ping me offline with any other questions, right, that we might not be able to address. We always have a speaker. We always have a theme every first Friday of the month. Even if we haven't met in person for like a year, shout out to our Agile Velocity sponsors who were always providing us the venue, right? It's kind of interesting what it was like before. We kind of remember it. We might go to doing it once in a while in the future, but I really think that being able to have people from like all over the world join us I mean, we still have the majority of people that join it from Austin, but you know, we've got San Antonio, Colorado. And if you haven't yet, put down where you're joining from. Okay, folks? And we always get a few folks, I mean, like internationally also. So this is just truly exciting, right? Don't want to spend too much time on the future ones that are coming up, but for today, which is interesting, I'm the only Austin-based speaker for like the next 5 months, and I wasn't even supposed to speak today. I just jumped in and took the opportunity because Daniel from London was not able to make it, right? But then next month we've got Jatin from Canada, and is going to speak to us of emotional intelligence. Right? Again, a lot of people-focused concepts that we have to really tackle to lead agile transformations. Johanna from New England, the Massachusetts area, will be talking about lead and serving others, focus on the team, not the individuals. And I also requested that she touch base on compensation, individual versus team-based compensation, which can be a struggle when you're trying to create teams with individuals that don't compete against each other. And then June 4th, we're going to have Paul and Dave come back and talk to us about culture shift, right? We talked a bit about it the last time they were here, and they're going to do like a phase 2 of that. So if with no further ado, can we have a round of applause for our speaker today? Max Ekesi, yay!
Woo! Yay, Max! Yay!
What a guy.
What a guy, and where's my dad?
Woohoo! Woohoo!
Continue as I set up. Please don't stop.
Woo! The crowd goes wild.
The crowd is wild. It's as if he hit a home run. Okay, everybody calm down. Calm down now. May I start? Thank you. Thanks to Melissa and everybody else. Do remember to go on mute, okay? So, leading agile transformations, 3-step approach, okay? Max Ekesi, as I said, don't need to go through all the intro. I'll touch base on that. Disclaimers. Out of my 12 years of agile experience, I've had experiences and I create viewpoints out of that. There could be some things that we might not be entirely on the same page, but the goal for today is just to share those experiences and just share an understanding of what I've been able to get in my 12 years. And there's something that specifically that I'd like to share with you today. The takeaways from today specifically are, first, I just want to skim real quick at why do I even do Agile? Why, right? I think some context about why I do it. Why is it so important? I mean, I'm an Agile coach. I don't just do it. I help other people do it. Like why, right? And what it means to me. Then the 3-step approach, right? I think that as we go through various years of having to do something, we learn what might work better than what does not work, right? Pros and cons. It's a continuous improvement, a Kaizen thing. Like that's a big part of what I do. I just want to continuously improve in anything I do. And a call to action. As we leave today, call to action, which will be a lot based on just some tips that have helped me. And I just want to share them with you, right? And maybe one or two might help, maybe not. I'd just like the opportunity to share them. Very quickly, as much as I like to talk about myself, there's a lot of other stuff that I want to touch base on for today. I think that I share a lot at a lot of conferences and meetups and a lot of things, but what I primarily learn from, I don't put my certifications down, okay? I learn from my experiences for the most part. And I've worked 20 years in Fortune 30 companies. Like everything I've experienced is large enterprises, like with IT organizations, thousands of people, just the IT organizations, right? And I think that what's important to understand, I want to share, is that it was in 2007 when I got introduced to Agile, right? It was specifically Scrum. But what's interesting is that my first experience was not a positive one. And fast forward after a year of that, I was like the Uber Scrum Master, over 8 Scrum teams, implementing stuff. And from then on, I never turned back. but I like to just, I don't have time to go into my first experiences with Agile and the team that it did not go so well, but it was that experience of a team that just wanted to go rogue and not follow any processes in the organizations or do anything with everybody else and just say, we're Agile, this is what we're gonna do, and forget everybody else. And I happened to be the Scrum Master on that team, which I didn't even know what it meant, but I was a project manager, they transitioned me into that. But I think that I bring that up as a segue to why do I do Agile, right? And no need to explain how mainstream Agile is these days. It's just, it is the thing, right? I mean, job postings require Agile experience, like case study after case study of how much like it has benefited the world. But then the Harvard Business Review. I mean, when you make the Harvard Business Review a bunch of times, you know, decision makers read that on their private jets and who knows what else. And then it really becomes, we have to be Agile. So what does that, just be Agile, start now. Okay, and it's just picked up incredibly from there. But that's not why I'm Agile, right? The world is changing faster now than it ever has before. It's changing faster now. If you look at our existence on Earth, like the pace of change in the last 20 plus years has been astronomical, right? I think it's mainly based to two things. Like the first smartphone was 2007, and now most of our e-commerce transactions are done via mobile devices. If you look at what smartphones have been able to do, like in developing countries, connecting people like wherever they are, being able to make banking transactions. I could go on and on this, but this is just part of the rate of change. Technology is disrupted so much and it just keeps on increasing, right? And cloud makes it accessible everywhere. But when I think about this, I think about, you know what? Darwin had it down like 300 years ago. He said, it's not the strongest that will survive. It's not even the most intelligent that will survive. It's not the company with the most money that will survive. It's not the individual that has the most skill sets and awareness. It is whomever is most adaptable. And for me, up till now, when I look at the Agile Manifesto, the 12 principles also, but primarily the 4 values. Like I use these 4 values time and again in helping the teams that I engage adapt and continuously add value. And I actually use it a lot on myself too, right? And this is why like I do it. This is why I do it, because it has worked for me. It has worked. There are projects that I got on that were stalled for like years, and we were able to start to deliver products on a quarterly basis. And that was a big deal. Like now we get to weeks and we put this on production. But when I saw it happen, I was never going to turn back from there. And then I started to, with my experience, to see there's actually a way that I can approach things that makes more sense. There's actually steps that I can take that make it easier when I'm helping teams out, I'm coaching, I'm engaging. And not only I like to share the steps in a theoretical manner, because I think that a lot of people share a theory and that's awesome because then you learn, but I'd like to share a case study along that. So I'll talk about the steps, and every time I go through the steps, I'll give like a particular case study, which is just an experience that I had within a project, so that it might be able to relate a wee bit more, right? So the 3-step approach is this. It's needs, it's wow, and it's processes. Now, wow is an acronym. Can anybody guess and put it down in the chat what wow might stand for? World of Warcraft. I didn't think about that. Not exactly. Ways of working. Everybody's going to, it's actually being used a lot more. It's actually being used a lot more. I'll explain what that means to me, but that is a key part of the step. Needs, wow processes. So how about if we go straight into it? I used a lot of custom animation in this presentation so I can keep your attention where I want it. My apologies if it gets a little bit annoying. First thing, when I engage with a team, an organization, there's got to be some prerequisite stuff. I mean, you've got to know your customers, you've got to know your business and their needs. If you don't, go figure out what their needs are, their goals and everything, because the goal here is to understand how your needs can be addressed by me helping you implement Agile values. That's the goal. So you have to understand what you're trying to achieve, what the North Star is from a business perspective. An example of this, just to shoot a few out there very quickly, a lot of teams say speed to market. It takes me 9 months to get a product out there. We know what we want to do, but it takes just so long. I got it. Some are like, we deploy the stuff at the end and it's not what the customer wanted. Maybe if we do an iterative product delivery and break it down to chunks, we could maybe give demos, we could get feedback along the way so that it's not a surprise to anybody when we go to market. Adapting to a changing roadmap. Has anybody ever had this problem out there that like, oh my, the team has to adapt to a changing roadmap, right? I'm sure I'm seeing the thumbs up there. I'm not seeing them yet, but you're giving me the thumbs up, right? It's not just me, yes, and the virtual one too. We got all these features there in Zoom. Feel free to. No, things don't change. Exactly, Justin, don't change. You're joking. But you know what I've been told by a VP in the past? It's like there are all these changes that are happening and everything. We have to lock on every story for the year, from the beginning of the year. And I was like, but wait, we're an organization of over 1,000 people, just in your organization. That means like 70 something teams. That means hundreds of projects, tens of thousands of stories. Yes, but we can't take all this change. And then if they want to change, we go through a change management process. Imagine that, right? The reality is change can happen. You saw that curve I showed you? Change happens and it'll keep on happening faster and faster in the future. So the fact that a roadmap changes, you need to figure out how to adapt to that. And a lot of teams have challenges with that. Now let's switch to the case study. Let me tell you how I faced the needs when I got engaged with this team. The interesting thing is that the first thing the team said was, hey, why don't we set up a scrum? Why don't we do safe? Why don't we do that? Like they would just jump into conclusions. And I was like, hold on a second. Okay? Before we even start talking about any process frameworks, like that's step number 3 in my mind. Okay? Before we even start talking about any of that, what are you trying to fix? Just tell me what you're trying to fix. Don't give me a solution. Let's not even try to come up with a solution as of now. No, let's just try to see what we're trying to fix. An annual roadmap continuously changing according to stakeholder needs. And this team and the leadership was clearly stated, we need to change because the needs of our customers are changing. So we want to deliver according to that change. So at least this time I didn't get the answer. Fix everything at the start, don't change it, go through a change management process if anything changes, which takes weeks. No, they were like, we do want to change because we've got these roadmap initiatives just coming up. It's a team of 12 people, but there's small stuff that is being thrown at us and it's critical stuff. It's stuff that we're capable of doing, but it's just tedious. We've broken up our one big team into 2 teams, but then these 2 teams still can't get it all done. And then some people have to attend scrum meetings from the 2 teams. So their meeting schedule has doubled and all these issues. Now, I don't know about you, but I always get called when projects are already having challenges. Why can't I get called when things are going well? Hey, we're about to have a happy hour to celebrate, the deployment of this, and you were part of a few of the meetings at the start. So no, that never, like I always get called when things are not going well. Okay, so that's the needs. They need to adapt to a roadmap that is continuously changing. So let me explain the ways of working, okay? What is the way the organization of the team works? And it's not per se work culture, okay? Sorry, mute someone really quickly. It's not work culture per se. It's having to assess how the team gets their work done, right? And sometimes there's a difference between a co-located team and a distributed team. Okay, the most effective agile team that I've ever experienced, and this was like about 8 years ago. Okay, there were like 5 people that sat around a table and were like so synced up, it was like osmosis. Like someone would start something and the other person would end it. Someone would develop one day, that same person would test the next day the work of somebody else. They just switch work around like that. When I brought up, hey, how about if we have stand-ups? They looked at me as if we already know what everybody else is doing and we're synced and we're all on the same page. Do you want us to have another meeting just to have a meeting? You see, so for that team, it wouldn't make sense. But for a distributed team that cannot sync up in that same capacity, even we have all these tools available, they would need a stand-up. So I have to assess what their ways of having to get their work done is, right? Their communication patterns, right? Like how in sync are they, and how complex is their communication patterns. A team of 2 or 3 people has a much less complicated communication patterns than 10 people. So you have to take a look at that, because that can start to peel the onion a bit before you jump into processes. A lot of times, and this happens a lot, there's direction from the leadership, the executives, the CIO, or whatever the case may be, and a lot of people do not fall in line with the directive. Hey, you can agree or disagree with the directive, but if you're part of the organization and a decision has been made, you need to do things to align with that. Because I've been with some teams that were slow to align and there were consequences. When there was a reduction in the workforce, teams that were more aligned, that were much further ahead on the journey that the organization was taking, were not impacted as much. Okay, it's just things you have to align. You have to always be aware. You have to listen to this communication and that communication. We have to get onto the cloud platform. Start to understand that that has to be part of your transformation, going from on-premise to on the cloud. Okay, you don't just, ignore that. Team maturity. This could mean a bunch of other things that we don't have the time to get into now, but some teams are able to just get into a backlog grooming, prioritize, do an estimation and story points, and be done. Some teams don't even understand where to start in that problem. Oh, sorry, I said backlog grooming. My apologies. Backlog refinement. My apologies. As you can tell, I've been doing it a long time, so sometimes don't go tell Scrum Alliance, please. Okay, we're cool. Okay, so they might just not be able to do it. Okay, so you have to judge that, the team maturity. So that is the ways of we're working. And it could go on for a bit more, but I just wanted to highlight some of the key ones that I really take a look at during the transformations. Now, case study in regards to this. Same team. We identified that their biggest challenge was an annual roadmap that is continuously changing. The way they worked, this team was very mature. They were doing Scrum, they were flowing, they would get things done. Their backlog refinements worked. Every time people started to work on stories, they got it, they got going. You have to gauge that, because that's not always the case. They were able to work autonomously. People could break off and do small work and work autonomously. That is very important, okay? I gauge a lot by how autonomous teams and individuals are on the team. In this particular scenario, the company was purchased by a larger company and there were certain directives that were established. So I make sure that whatever kind of a transformation we're trying to put in place is aligned. Whatever we're trying to do to respond to an ever-changing portfolio or whatever, it doesn't take us in a direction where per se the organization has said, we want to be more of an engineering organization. We want to have more technical acumen and focus and not a decrease on the process. Hence, they're not hiring as many project managers, scrum masters, product owners, like technical roles. So now that comes into factor and saying, how can we address this with having to think, how can maybe some technical folks start to put on the hats of non-technical folks and maybe step into the role of a scrum master and a product owner from time to time, because that is a directive of the larger company that bought the smaller company. And so hence CIO communicated that. And the way that they were working at the time was meeting intensive. It was like, that was the first thing. After 2 weeks, it just stood out to me. I'm like, oh my goodness. I told you to forward me the meetings that you guys have. I didn't expect you to forward me 20 meetings, recurring meetings to go to. Because, you know, it's not just a backlog or a refinement. There might be a follow-up to that. Then there's this sync up for this particular product and this sync up for this particular product. And everybody was invited to all the meetings and it was confusing who had to attend and whatnot. It was stressful. When I saw the amount of meetings, I got stressed out, okay? Granted, I get stressed out very easily. I need to calm down a bit. It's okay. I'm making progress. It's one of my development goals for the year. My development goals this year are don't be as stressed out over petty things and listen. Which, by the way, I've not had a chance to give you folks the opportunity to ask questions, but I just want to make sure I get through some of the key stuff. And then we can maybe take a question or two from the chat. Feel free to chat the questions now, then we come back to it. I need to listen more. Yeah. Okay, so this is the way of working. So I've got a feel of the team, right? It's passion. There you go, Brian. Encourage me some more. It's passion that allows me to be the way I am. It's not a flaw. Processes, okay? Processes get a bad reputation. I've noticed that a lot of times when I say, okay, hey, process, oh no, another process, like everybody starts to roll their eyes. Why is it? Why is it? Because a process is simply a series of actions to get to a particular end. That's all it is. If it becomes complex, if it's cumbersome, it's because whomever was implementing or created made it like that. Process on itself can help to set expectation, can help to say, I will be expecting this from you so I can organize myself. I am expecting you to show up to this meeting prepared with item 1, 2, 3. Like, it can really help out. And yes, I consider, you know, Scrum, Safe, XP, process frameworks. Kanban is a little bit of a different thing because it's almost considered more of a tool to get things done. Okay? And a lot of times I always say, dare to create something new. And why do I say that, right? Because to reinvent the wheel takes up time. You're gonna reinvent a new process. Every organization I've been engaged with is different from the other one. Every team is different from the other one. Every individual is different from the other one. I've never had the same experience. And so maybe it's just a matter of tweaking things a little bit to a standard process like Scrum or whatever the case it may be. But I have become more and more of just the mindset that I'm going to keep it simple, and that's going to be the brilliance of it. Yes, I do not only quote Leonardo da Vinci, Einstein, I also quote Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee said, simplicity is the key to brilliance. And a lot of times I take a very simplistic manner that I'm going to get everybody on the same page about some standard things that have to happen, some expectation, the process, higher level, then The how you sort out, okay? Because at this point, I practically don't care if people do Scrum or Safe or Kanban or even a mini waterfall. Don't let anybody know about that, okay? Don't let anybody, because I got PTSD from the waterfall traditional days that I had. But you know what? Don't judge. Maybe in some case, for some people, it works. They just have to deliver on the roadmap. That is the goal, okay? Period. So, case study. What did we do with knowing this to be the processes? Do you guys want to hear? Would you be interested in hearing? Because I don't feel the excitement. I don't see on the chat like, yes, are you interested to hear what processes we put down? Sorry for my obnoxiousness. Sorry. I'm calming down. Hold on. I'm calming down. All right. So I said waterfall as an example. As an example, I'm not a hater of any process, any methodology. I'm trying to not be a hater, okay? Continuously changing a roadmap, okay? That's what we want to address. Voila. Pods on demand. We brainstormed, the leadership, the folks in the trenches saw how everybody's having to get work done. Pods on demand is what we came up with. So I'll take a minute to explain this, okay? There are small chunks of work that come up all the time. Putting these small chunks of work in a bigger backlog for a big team of 7 people to do means that at any given time, 70% of the people in a stand-up, in a sprint planning, in whatever kind of meeting there is, get no value from what is being discussed. No value, because there's nothing that they're doing at the moment, right? Small chunks of work that are independent of each other. So we said, why don't we create a manner in which, as work comes out from the roadmap, which is committed to, which is what our stakeholders care about, we break off people into pods. Pods of 2 people, 3 people, 4 people. Doesn't matter, like we just take an estimate of how many people we're gonna need, go. And a lot of times those pods, because we only have one project manager, one scrum master for like 12 people, a lot of times these pods will break off. They have no scrum master. They have maybe 10% of a product manager that just guides them and aligns them with the stakeholders, and who's who you're going to work with, and who's going to be giving you some of the needs that they have, and then you get it done. It is incredible when you can just create pods of 2-3 people to break off and just do work. It is incredible because all of a sudden they get stuff done. They are not caught up in other meetings. They are not caught up on stuff that has nothing to do with them. They're focused. They're focused. They don't have distractions. And they go at lightning speed. Okay. And you think that someone that is hardcore a developer cannot facilitate a stand-up? Cannot, create stories in Jira and having them linked to the epic, which is the epic that has been committed to the stakeholders. They handle it with no issues. Okay, no issues. When you say pods, are you equating that to Scrum team? No. So a pod can have a developer, an architect, and a product owner that pops by from time to time to give some guidance on the product. There's no Scrum Master. There's not a whole team. There are no ceremonies that have been dictated. There's no need for sprint planning. There's no need for all this stuff. They just have to get stuff done. Now, I'll get to what the basic expectations are of the pods, right? But there was a problem that came up because as brilliant as I am, I can't solve for every scenario, okay? So things will come up. What happened is that all of a sudden, there were gaps between when work was coming in on the roadmap. Some work would come in and end in March, and then there might be like a few weeks or a month that there wasn't any new initiative that came up. And so there was some stagnation. So we said, hey, why don't we create the one team? It's like one generic team, which does a lot of the keep the lights on, support stuff and everything. And you come back to the one team. You come home after you're done with your pod, and a lot of the cloud certifications that you have to get, because we're focusing a lot more of transitioning everything onto the AWS cloud and everything. And when you come off your work, you have time to do that. You have time to help out with the keep the lights on and stuff like. And so you come back onto one team, right? So there's this larger team that might have a bit more of a larger team feel to it. But as things come up from the stakeholders, we break folks out into pods and they go and they get it done. And we just started to see that they were getting one thing done and another thing done. And they were getting things done faster than how we were feeding it to them. And it was like, okay, you know? So now I'll just go to the last thing, which is the expectations of pod, and then I'll take a look at the questions or get a question or two, okay? We had to have some expectations. We had to have a standard, high level, slim process. All your work is in Jira. We used Jira as a tool. So all your stories are in the backlog and they link to the epics, which are what we're committing to from a roadmap perspective. Because what's interesting that I've always discovered is that people just start to work on stuff. They just start to work on stuff like, oh, Bob sent me an email to help him out with this. And so like, whoa. If it took 1 or 2 hours to help out Bob, that's okay. But he pulled you into an initiative that took you 2 weeks. And that was not something that we committed to. Tell Bob, let's talk about it and see if it's a higher priority than the roadmap item that you were on. Somehow people get into other stuff. Somehow. It always happens, right? So your backlog is linked to the roadmap. And so some of the reports we do, if we don't see a link to something in the roadmap, we're like, why are you doing this work on this story? There might be a valid reason to, but I'm like, let's talk about it at least. We kept everybody on the same sprint cadence, at least to start with, so that if you get done in the pod, we can have an understanding of, as soon as Susan is done on pod 2, she's going to come back to the main team on sprint 3. We'll give her a day or two to reacclimatize and stuff like that. And then we have some keep the lights on stuff to do. Okay, so we can start to like go sprint by sprint and kind of understand from a resource perspective, right? And then come back home was the concept of the larger team that we had that was not the pods, right? So now, some questions I'm seeing here. How to address the transparency issues on the separate pods. Quick answer to that, as long as they're getting the roadmap stuff done, who cares? Who cares? I mean, there might be more to this question that I don't understand, but get the work done that you are breaking out or you're broken out in the pod for, and we're good. Finished. Give people the autonomy to get stuff done, right? And then, sorry, let me put that back. Hold on a second, folks. And if you want to get off mute and ask a question or two, can we get an example of the kind of work the pod would tackle? Yeah, I mean, like, we need to do an enhancement of a procurement application, because all of a sudden we're going to be selling 3 other products through that procurement application. Nobody knew about that when we did the roadmap. Nobody knew, but all of a sudden we have to sell it. If we don't sell these products, we don't make money. So break off a pod, go and figure out how to do this. Here are the things you do. Boom. They get done like in a month and a half. Add 3 new products. It's on the website. It's in the application on the back end. It's connected to the database. That's it. An example. Any other? Oh, there's quite a bit of stuff here which I can't go through everything. How about if I go on, and then if we have a chance, we'll come back to some more of the questions, right? But this is the pods on demand was what we implemented. So, folks, a key thing is you implement stuff. How's it doing? Right? Like, everybody feels really brilliant when you implement stuff. Hey, that was awesome. Yes. Oh, we're getting work done. It's all good. We're getting work done. We're getting more work done now than we were before. What's the problem? Let's do an anonymous survey to the team. Let's see how they feel. That is the spirit of continuous improvement, Kaizen. Kaizen, Japanese word for just continuously improving on everything you do, right? So the first thing that I did, anonymous survey. It has to be anonymous. There's so many people that don't speak up in retrospectives. There's so many people. And there's so many people that just don't feel at ease about sharing, even if it's 2 people in a room. And I'm talking to the 2 people, one person might just not share something. And if I talk to them in person, they'd share 10 times as much. But the feedback was, for the most part, as you can see, not 80 to 90% of the people were like, well to very well. Like, at least this massive change in having to do things didn't throw everybody off and say, I hate this. Please, it's confusing. I'm all over the place. I don't understand where I'm supposed to be, which pod. I don't know. My backlog doesn't make sense now. But no, it's people just got work done. And some of the comments that people were sharing very quickly, because, you know, always like to just in the anonymous survey say, what is working well? I really liked fewer meetings. Folks, I can't explain. When you reduce meetings for people, I mean, I've just experienced this all through my career. It's not just the meeting time, it's the context switching. It's the knowing that you're doing work and I got the meeting in 20 minutes and then you start to work faster and it just impacts your quality of work. It impacts everything, right? So that was a problem, right? And we had less process and more engineering oriented. This is a key directive that our executive had set, and we were aligning with it. Very important, right? But hey, it's not all positive. What could actually not be positive about it? Well, let's hear from them. What is not working well and is an opportunity for improvement? What's interesting is that I would say, I didn't put all the feedback here. I would say 70% of the feedback was around people felt less connected to other people. And let's take a second here, okay? Let's take a second. The key thing is to get work done. And you have fewer distractions. You can get your work done. You have more time to advance your mastery, more time to do like certification courses that you're supposed to do, paid for, and everything. You have more time and you work fewer hours on all this, but yet there's a need. There's a need for people to feel connected. There's a need for people to feel. Now, this is not everybody across the board, but a lot of people, even introverted people, want to feel connected. So there are some other things that we did to enhance the connection, because not only we continued the pods, we actually broke more off the one team into pods and went phenomenal, but we had to implement things to keep people. There's a need for people as humans to feel connected, know what the larger purpose of what everything is going on, that the team is doing, stuff like that. Even if it doesn't impact you at all, you don't have to do anything on it. Sometimes some people think, but that's just noise. But no, it is a connection, right? So I have covered the 3-step approach, okay? Needs, ways of working, and processes. And for us, in that particular scenario, it equaled out to pods on demand. It worked from the feedback that we got from the actual most important measurement, delivered on time, increased the delivery speed. And so not only it's something that I did with that particular team, it's a case study that I'm starting to share with other teams that are at a maturity level to take it on. Because if teams are having problems with like just creating a backlog and story point estimation or whatever other thing they have, they can't go into this. They just can't. You need a certain kind of a maturity, right? And very quickly, I'd like to, well, I'm not gonna be very quickly. Estimated to take me about 10 minutes or so, but if there's a pressing question that someone has that they'd want to get off mute and share it, before I go into the call to action, which are kind of like Max's tips.
Yeah, I've got one for you.
Yes, Nick.
Thanks for the great presentation, Max. So we are kind of an interesting company, and I'm sure this has been heard a million times over, but what happens when your engineering is doing pretty mature things, experimenting and learning, but you have another part of the organization, say the business side, the sales side, the marketing side, that are still working in traditional waterfall framework and kind of constraining the rest of the process accordingly. Thanks.
Nick, very good question. This happens all the time. It has happened all the time. One thing I can say about how I approached it and had a certain amount of success, I wouldn't say, oh, it was awesome and it was successful. It was, we spoke to the business about breaking off a small chunk, doing a proof of concept with a small chunk, because the folks in the business have their job to do, Nick. They've got their job, they've got quotas to meet. They've got all the other stuff that they have to do. And you'll come in like, hey, I can deliver faster. Well, hold on a second. I don't need that right now. I need to get this other stuff done. But sometimes they don't really understand the value that they can get to everything else they do if we could just automate a few things here and there. So what I've done in the past is understand how the business, the salespeople work. Right? Understand their needs, the same exact thing, their needs, the ways of working, and identify a small part where we can do a proof of concept. Because it takes people to see it. They have to see it happen. Don't bring in an HBR case study. Don't say at Google, they do this. Facebook, yeah, thanks a lot. I got my quota to meet. I got my stuff to make happen today. Right? So what has helped is just having to chunk out a proof of concept, make that work, or it might not even work, but you'll learn from it. You'll get data points from it about how this works with their way of doing things, and then grow from there. Grow from that small proof of concept. I hope that helped. I'll go into the tips, and then if
Hey,
we
Max,
have time,
I would add to that
Mhm.
you know, part of our role is to educate in the agile process and to get other people to come along and understand it. So, I mean, I think that's a great question, and you know, you know where I work, Max, so I struggle with that daily. But you know, we continue to make that better by educating those people that aren't familiar with it and try to improve incrementally.
Yes, Brian, spot on. The only thing I would add, kind of like a caveat, they want to know how can your agile help me achieve my goals, okay?
Yep.
So connect it to what I need to get done. Because if you want to be agile, well, that's good for you. How's that going to help me to increase the hits on the site? How's it going to help me?
I'm going to deliver
So you
value
connect.
faster.
You connect
Right?
it. You connect it. Exactly.
Deliver
That's a
value
key
faster.
part. That's a key part. And to be able to achieve that, you have to understand their needs. You have to understand how they work. Like, still go through some of the steps that I shared. But thank you, Brian. Spot on. Spot on. Hey. So Brian and I worked at the same place in the past. Obviously, I don't work there anymore. But hey, not hating. Let's move on to the presentation. All right. These are my tips from a team perspective. From a team perspective, I've got a few, and then I'll share a few from the individual perspective. What you can do for you. Psychological safety. Every experience I've had when people hesitate to change, why? They understand that the change is better. They understand the value that they'll get, the team will get, everything. Like their work-life balance will improve. A lot of times they understand all of that, and yet they hesitate to change. So I say it's very hard to just create the psychological safety, but try to increase it. This has been proven by the Aristotle Project. Okay, if you haven't heard about it or whatever, it was done in 2012 by the Google. They did it on like 100 teams. They spent tens of millions of dollars because they're Google and they can spend on this stuff that a lot of people might think is silly, but it's the most important thing to understand how a team can work in a better way. And the one thing that they came up, it wasn't pay us more, increase our technical capabilities, give us more candy or coffee or more. It was psychological safety. It was that it wasn't even purpose, having to give me a purpose. It was, I just want to be safe to share a different idea, a different perspective. That's the highest thing that came on the list. Blows your mind away. We know it. Let's try to increase it, right? Motivation. Even if some people feel safe and they understand, yeah, there is an advantage, they still might be like, they truly are not motivated. So you have to find what motivates people. And if folks have not had the chance to, drive. Okay, this book is phenomenal in having to call out the intrinsic motivation, not salary, not more PTO days, not stuff like that. Like, how can you motivate people more by giving them more purpose? Like, explaining the purpose that they have. Okay, the autonomy. Give people autonomy. Just tell them what to do. Let them figure out the how. Honestly, I don't care about like knowing how they do their work or when they do it and stuff like that. You just have to deliver on the roadmap, because or else I get called, the senior manager get called, everybody get called, and it is not nice. Okay, and that's why we're here. That's the number one priority. Just give them the autonomy and mastery. If you give them time to learn more about their cloud technology that they have to, or who knows what, that helps them out a lot. Cross-functional teams, folks. Cross-functional teams. I mean, the most agile, highly productive teams that I've been on have been cross-functional. It's like the number one team I told you about like 8 years ago. I didn't know who was the developer, who was the tester. I didn't know who the architect was. Someone that I thought was a developer followed me to a meeting with the business and started to do like business mapping of stories and processes on the wall. I mean, like, I was like, the wall, the whiteboard. I was like, I didn't know you could do that. Yeah, I just switch hats and everything. Folks that can switch hats and everything and do that, it's incredible. And we can go through, I could do a whole presentation on that, right? Individually, I'm going to end now with talking about you, what you might be able to gain from, and you have control over you, that has helped me a lot. Okay, introducing change has consequences. Whether as an agile coach, whether as whatever you are that you're trying to lead an agile transformation or change, it has consequence. And sometimes it's awesome. It's such a high, like when you see people you've worked with and for the first time, they're estimating in story points, like smooth like that. When you see people that, they refine the stories and everybody's on the same page at the start of the sprint or whatever it is, they respond to change. Their individual interactions are awesome. The working product, all the values of Agile, they're just flowing on it. It's great. But then I can personally tell you that when I've introduced change and some people, whether it be decision makers, leaders, individual contributors, for some reason, as charming a character as I am, as calm and laid back as I am, people felt threatened. People are like, this change is going to impact my career, my job title, my this, my that, and it just went downhill. And I have actually been demoted because I have had, not demoted like pay was reduced, but responsibilities were taken away from me. Not included in certain, like initiatives. There are consequences. And how I deal with that, how I have set myself up to adapt, I have for the last 20 years, outside of my IT Agile career, I've been doing very well in purchasing investment properties, and both residential and commercial. And it comes to the point now that I have the passive residual income that when I have to introduce change, which might or might not work out, I don't come from a place of fear. I know that financially I'll be okay. Psychologically, I'll be okay. Things are going to be, it's not the end of the world, okay? I mean, I can be me without being afraid of what change is going to do. However you prepare yourself, that's up to you, but be aware that that is very key. I'm going to end with find ways to stretch your capabilities, okay? And I mean what by this? I'll tell you very quickly. There's a friend I have, Dan. Spoke to him on Monday. He told me a quick story about he worked on a job as a consultant for 3 months. The people at the end of the job, it was a government agency, were like, hey, this was awesome. We would spend millions on this. And now for like 500,000, we got it done in 3 months. They were so happy, everything. Then they said, how come your whole team is not here? Dan was there. His account manager was there. His account manager said, that's your team. No, no, no. Where's your database administrator? Where's your UI guy? Where's your backend guy? Where's your project manager? Where's your product manager? That's him. That's it. Like Dan did everything. And everything changed from the customer being so happy to they got pissed off that they had to pay $500,000 for just one person, right? It's like, wait, hold on. What, you got your value. They were excited about it. But I bring up this extreme case because people have to start to find ways to stretch outside of what they're capable of doing. I am taking an AWS cloud practitioner class next week, okay? The most valuable people, the most adaptable individuals out there are people that can switch hats. The days of just doing a single role, like a lot of us do, that might not be a thing in the future. And I've seen that teams can have the possibility of getting smaller because Dan used AWS and the 25 services that he has access to actually automate, test, develop, scale, do all of that. And I think a lot of that is coming across to a lot of other places in product management and project management and all that stuff. Stretch, learn to stretch beyond your capability. So I'd like to conclude with thank you for being here to listen to why Agile for me. 3-step approach, needs, wow, and processes, and what you can do as a call to action, some tips. Thank you so much, folks, for being here. We have a minute left. As I said, we start on time and we end on time. Okay, if you have a question, put it down in the chat. I'm going to save the chat and follow up with people. Connect with me. And thank you for being here, folks. Thank you for being here and taking the time. Right? I'll just ask, let's do a Brady Bunch picture. I want to actually take a picture of everyone. If you feel okay to get off camera, okay? And we take a picture. Yeah, there are a few folks. I see Charles just turned on. Yes. Shaheen, yes. Okay. Hey, you know what? I'll take this. Smile, smile, thumbs up. Okay. And let's take one right now. There you go. Okay. Thank you, folks, and have a good Friday. Take care. Bye.
Well done, Max.
Thank you. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Take care.
We'll invite you very soon to
Alberto.
Las Gidi. Yeah.
Yeah, to what? To something
To Las
in
Gidi.
Nigeria?
Yes, Las Gidi. You forgot what we call Lagos, Las Gidi.
Las Gidi is like.
Oh.
As soon as I get my vaccine, I'm coming back to Lagos. As soon as I'm getting my
Yeah,
vaccine,
we established an Agile Meetup, Agility Nigeria Meetup. So that was established during the
COVID times.
Agile 20 festival.
Okay.
Yeah, I hosted an event.
Do you have virtual? Do you have a way to join virtually?
Yeah, yes. I will share with you.
Share it with me. Take care.
Thank you. Well done. Cheers, bro.
Cheers, man. Thank you. I'm gonna wait for everyone to get off. Ned, so you around? Oh no, you dropped off right now, Ned. All right, folks, terminating the meeting. Thank you for joining. Take care.